On a crisp autumn morning in March 2016, three experienced backpackers from different countries embarked on what was supposed to be a 2-week trekking expedition through the remote wilderness of Torres del Paine National Park in Chilean Patagonia. But they would never return from their adventure, vanishing without a trace in one of the world's most unforgiving landscapes. Markus Weber, a 28-year-old German outdoor enthusiast and mountain guide, had organized the expedition through his adventure travel blog, bringing together Sarah Mitchell, a 26-year-old Canadian photographer seeking to document Patagonia's pristine wilderness, and Diego Morales, a 31-year-old experienced Argentine climber who knew the region's treacherous terrain better than most. The trio had meticulously planned their route through the park's most remote sections, carrying GPS devices, satellite communicators, and enough supplies for 3 weeks, with check-in points scheduled every 48 hours, with park rangers who monitored all backcountry expeditions. Where are you reading from? Share your city and country in the comments before we continue this story. Their last confirmed communication came on March 15th at 6:30 p.m., when Markus sent a routine GPS ping from their campsite near Lago Grey, reporting good weather conditions and their intention to cross the challenging Paso John Gardner the following morning. When they failed to check in as scheduled on March 17th, park rangers immediately launched a search operation, but the notorious Patagonian weather had turned violent, with winds exceeding 100 mph and visibility near zero, making aerial searches impossible for several days. Ground search teams battled through blizzards and treacherous terrain, following the backpackers' planned route and checking every possible shelter and emergency cache in the area, but found no trace of the missing trio despite covering hundreds of square kilometers. The search continued for 3 weeks, involving Chilean military helicopters, Argentine rescue teams, and international volunteers. But the vast wilderness seemed to have swallowed the three experienced adventurers without leaving a single clue. 7 years later, in a discovery that would shock the international mountaineering community, their bodies would be found in circumstances so bizarre and disturbing that investigators would struggle to explain how three seasoned outdoor experts had met such a mysterious and tragic end in the heart of Patagonia's most beautiful yet deadly landscape. The initial search and rescue operation for the missing backpackers became one of the largest international efforts in Patagonian history, involving teams from Chile, Argentina, Germany, Canada, and volunteer rescue organizations from across South America who were determined to find the three experienced adventurers. Chilean park authorities coordinated with CONAF, National Forest Corporation, and the military to deploy helicopters equipped with thermal imaging cameras. But the region's notoriously unpredictable weather patterns created constant obstacles, with sudden storms and whiteout conditions grounding aircraft for days at a time. Ground teams followed every possible route the backpackers might have taken, checking emergency shelters, examining river crossings, and searching areas where previous hikers had encountered difficulties. But the sheer scale of the wilderness and the harsh conditions made comprehensive coverage nearly impossible. The families of the missing backpackers traveled to Chile to coordinate with authorities and join the search efforts, with Markus's parents flying in from Munich, Sarah's mother arriving from Vancouver, and Diego's brother coming from Buenos Aires, all united in their desperate hope to find their loved ones alive. International media coverage brought global attention to the case, with outdoor magazines, mountaineering websites, and news outlets following every development in the search, while the backpacking community rallied to provide financial support and volunteer searchers. Expert trackers and survival specialists analyzed the trio's planned route, weather conditions, and possible scenarios that could have led to their disappearance, considering everything from equipment failure and injuries to getting lost in whiteout conditions or falling into hidden crevasses. The search teams discovered some disturbing evidence of the harsh conditions the backpackers would have faced, including the remains of previous hikers who had died in the region over the decades, serving as grim reminders of Patagonia's unforgiving nature. After 6 weeks of intensive searching, authorities were forced to scale back the operation due to the approaching winter season. and the extreme danger posed to rescue teams by deteriorating weather conditions. The case was officially classified as a missing persons investigation, but the families refused to give up hope, organizing annual memorial expeditions and maintaining pressure on authorities to continue periodic searches whenever conditions permitted. The years following the disappearance were marked by persistent efforts from the families to keep the case active, despite official resources being redirected to other emergencies and the gradual fading of media attention, as the story became another tragic statistic in Patagonia's long history of missing adventurers. Marcus Weber's parents established a foundation dedicated to improving safety protocols for backcountry hiking in Patagonia, working with park authorities to install better emergency communication systems and GPS tracking requirements for all multi-day expeditions. Sarah Mitchell's mother became an advocate for international cooperation in wilderness rescue operations, lobbying governments to establish standardized protocols for cross-border search efforts and emergency response coordination. Diego Morales' family organized annual search expeditions, bringing together experienced climbers and trackers who volunteered their time to explore areas that official search teams had been unable to access due to technical climbing requirements or extreme weather conditions. The international mountaineering community adopted the case as a symbol of the risks inherent in extreme adventure travel, with climbing magazines publishing detailed analyses of the trio's planned route and the potential hazards they might have encountered. Several independent investigators and adventure filmmakers attempted to retrace the backpackers' steps, producing documentaries and articles that kept the story alive in outdoor enthusiast circles while generating new theories about what might have happened. The Chilean government implemented new safety regulations for backcountry travel in Torres del Paine, requiring all hikers to carry emergency beacons and check in at designated points, partly in response to this case and other disappearances in the region. Local Patagonian guides and rescue teams continued to keep an eye out for any signs of the missing backpackers during their regular operations, but the vast wilderness and harsh conditions made the chances of accidental discovery extremely remote. The families maintained a website and social media presence dedicated to the search, sharing updates on any new developments and coordinating with other families of missing persons in similar wilderness areas around the world. As years passed without any trace of the three backpackers, some began to accept that they might never be found, while others remained convinced that the harsh Patagonian environment would eventually reveal its secrets. On October 12, 2023, 7 years and 7 months after the backpackers' disappearance, a Chilean military helicopter conducting a routine patrol flight over a remote section of the Cordillera del Paine spotted something unusual hanging from a cliff face in an area that had been searched multiple times during the original rescue operation. The pilot, Captain Roberto Silva, initially thought he was seeing climbing equipment or debris caught on the rock face, but closer inspection through binoculars revealed what appeared to be human remains suspended from ropes in a configuration that defied immediate explanation. The discovery site was located approximately 15 kilometers from the backpackers' last known position, in an extremely remote and technically challenging area accessible only by helicopter or expert rock climbing, far from any established hiking trails or emergency shelters. A specialized rescue team was immediately dispatched to the location, but the technical difficulty of the recovery operation required careful planning and favorable weather conditions that didn't materialize for another 3 days. When the recovery team finally reached the site, they found the bodies of all 3 missing backpackers suspended from climbing ropes attached to anchor points drilled into the cliff face, positioned in a way that suggested they had been deliberately arranged rather than having fallen or become accidentally entangled. The bodies were remarkably well preserved due to the cold, dry conditions and protection from scavengers provided by their elevated position, allowing for positive identification through dental records and personal effects, including Marcus's distinctive climbing harness and Sarah's camera equipment. The scene was immediately secured as a potential crime scene, with forensic experts flown in from Santiago to document every detail before the bodies were carefully recovered and transported for detailed examination. Initial observations revealed that all 3 backpackers were wearing their full climbing gear and appeared to have been suspended at the site for several years. But the exact circumstances of how they had ended up in this position remained a complete mystery. The discovery sent shockwaves through the international climbing community and reignited intense media coverage of the case, with experts struggling to explain how 3 experienced adventurers had ended up hanging from a remote cliff face in an area they had no apparent reason to visit. The forensic examination of the recovered bodies revealed disturbing details that transformed the investigation from a wilderness accident inquiry into a complex criminal case that baffled investigators and horrified the international outdoor community. Dr. Patricia Mendoza, the chief forensic pathologist assigned to the case, determined that all 3 backpackers had died from exposure and dehydration rather than trauma, suggesting they had been alive when placed in their suspended positions and had died slowly over a period of several days. The positioning of the bodies indicated they had been carefully arranged using their own climbing equipment, with ropes and harnesses configured in a way that would have been impossible for them to achieve themselves, especially given the technical difficulty of the cliff face and the precision required for the anchor points. Toxicology tests revealed no evidence of drugs or poisons that might have incapacitated the victims, deepening the mystery of how they had been overpowered and transported to such a remote and inaccessible location. The climbing gear showed signs of deliberate modification, with certain safety features disabled and rope configurations that would have prevented the victims from escaping or lowering themselves to safety, indicating extensive knowledge of technical climbing equipment and procedures. Personal belongings found with the bodies included Sarah's camera, which contained photographs taken during their final days that showed no signs of distress or awareness of any threat, with the last images captured at their planned campsite near Lago Grey. Marcus's GPS device revealed their exact movements up until March 16th, showing they had followed their planned route precisely before the trail went cold, with no indication of deviation or emergency that might explain their presence at the cliffside. Diego's climbing journal, found in his backpack, contained detailed notes about their progress and weather conditions, with the final entry expressing optimism about completing their planned route and no mention of any problems or concerns. The investigation revealed that the cliff site where the bodies were found was not accessible from any of the established hiking trails in the area, requiring either helicopter transport or an extremely difficult and dangerous climb that would have been impossible to complete while carrying 3 unconscious or unwilling victims. Investigators began to suspect that the backpackers had encountered someone with extensive knowledge of the region and advanced climbing skills, someone who had deliberately targeted them for reasons that remained unclear. The investigation into the deaths of the 3 backpackers uncovered a disturbing pattern of similar disappearances in remote wilderness areas across South America, suggesting the possibility of a serial killer who specifically targeted experienced outdoor enthusiasts in isolated locations. Detective Inspector Carlos Ramirez, assigned to lead the investigation, discovered that at least 6 other experienced hikers and climbers had vanished under mysterious circumstances in Patagonian wilderness areas over the past decade, with several cases sharing similar characteristics, including the victim's high level of outdoor experience and the complete absence of any trace, despite extensive search efforts. The investigation revealed that all the missing persons had been active on social media and outdoor forums, sharing detailed information about their planned routes and expedition schedules, potentially providing a predator with advanced knowledge of their movements and vulnerabilities. Forensic analysis of the rope and climbing equipment used to suspend the victims revealed that some components were not standard gear that the backpackers would have carried, suggesting their killer had brought specialized equipment specifically for the purpose of creating the macabre display. The anchor points drilled into the cliff face showed evidence of professional-grade equipment and techniques, indicating someone with extensive rock climbing experience and access to specialized tools that would have been difficult to transport to such a remote location. Investigators began examining the backgrounds of all individuals who had been in the Torres del Paine area during the time of the backpackers' disappearance, including park employees, guides, researchers, and other visitors. But the remote nature of the region and limited surveillance made it difficult to establish a comprehensive timeline. The international nature of the case required cooperation between Chilean authorities and law enforcement agencies in Germany, Canada, and Argentina, with Interpol coordinating the sharing of information and resources across multiple jurisdictions. Psychological profilers brought in to analyze the crime scene suggested that the killer was likely someone with intimate knowledge of the Patagonian wilderness, advanced technical climbing skills, and a psychological need to display victims in a way that demonstrated power and control over experienced outdoor enthusiasts. The deliberate positioning of the bodies in such an inaccessible location suggested the killer wanted the victims to be found eventually, but only after a significant period of time, indicating a desire for the crime to be discovered and recognized as the work of someone with superior wilderness skills. The breakthrough in the case came when investigators discovered that a former park guide named Eduardo Vasquez had been present in the Torres del Paine area during the time of the backpackers' disappearance and had a history of concerning behavior toward international visitors, particularly those traveling in small groups without local guides. Vasquez, a 45-year-old Chilean national with extensive climbing experience and intimate knowledge of the park's most remote areas, had been dismissed from his position as a guide 3 years earlier, following complaints about his aggressive behavior and inappropriate comments toward female hikers. Background investigation revealed that Vasquez had been living illegally in remote areas of the park, surviving off the grid and potentially stalking hiking groups without their knowledge, using his expertise to move undetected through terrain that would challenge even experienced climbers. Witnesses came forward describing encounters with a man matching Vasquez's description, who had approached their camping groups offering unsolicited advice about routes and weather conditions, behavior that had made several hikers uncomfortable enough to report it to park authorities. The investigation revealed that Vasquez had been questioned briefly during the original search for the missing backpackers, but had provided an alibi that was not thoroughly verified at the time, allowing him to avoid suspicion, despite being one of the few people with the skills and knowledge necessary to commit such a crime. When authorities attempted to locate Vasquez for questioning, they discovered he had vanished from his last known address shortly after the bodies were discovered, suggesting he was aware that the investigation was closing in on him. A manhunt was launched across Chile and Argentina, with special attention paid to remote wilderness areas where Vasquez might attempt to hide using his survival skills and knowledge of the terrain. The search for Vasquez revealed additional evidence linking him to other disappearances, including personal items belonging to missing hikers found in caves and shelters he had used, suggesting a pattern of predatory behavior spanning several years. International climbing and hiking organizations issued warnings about Vasquez, sharing his photograph and description with outdoor enthusiasts planning trips to Patagonia and other remote areas where he might attempt to target new victims. The case highlighted serious gaps in background checking and monitoring systems for individuals working in wilderness tourism, leading to calls for improved safety protocols and oversight of guides and other personnel with access to vulnerable travelers. Eduardo Vasquez was finally captured 6 months later in a remote area of Argentina's Los Glaciares National Park, where he had been living in a hidden shelter and continuing to stalk hiking groups while evading an international manhunt. His arrest came after a group of German climbers reported being followed by a suspicious individual who matched Vasquez's description, leading to a coordinated operation between Chilean and Argentine authorities that cornered him in terrain he had previously used to avoid detection. When confronted by authorities, Vasquez initially denied any involvement in the backpackers' deaths, but eventually confessed to killing Marcus, Sarah, and Diego, as well as 4 other hikers whose bodies had never been found in various locations across Patagonia. His confession revealed a disturbing pattern of behavior in which he would identify vulnerable hiking groups through social media and outdoor forums, then track them in the wilderness before attacking, when they were most isolated and defenseless. Vasquez described in chilling detail how he had approached the 3 backpackers at their campsite, claiming to be a park ranger conducting a safety check, before overpowering them with a combination of surprise, superior local knowledge, and threats against their lives. He admitted to transporting the victims to the remote cliff site using a combination of hiking and technical climbing, forcing them to participate in their own suspension before leaving them to die slowly from exposure, while he watched from a hidden position nearby. The confession revealed that Vasquez had been motivated by a twisted desire to prove his superiority over foreign hikers who he believed showed insufficient respect for the dangers of Patagonian wilderness, viewing their deaths as a form of education about the true power of the landscape he considered his domain. His trial became an international sensation, with families of the victims traveling to Chile to witness the proceedings, and outdoor organizations calling for justice for all the hikers who had fallen victim to his predatory behavior. Vasquez was sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole, but the case continued to haunt the international climbing community and led to significant changes in safety protocols for wilderness travel in remote areas around the world. The resolution of the backpackers' case led to comprehensive reforms in wilderness safety protocols across South America and internationally, transforming how authorities monitor and protect outdoor enthusiasts in remote areas. The families of Marcus, Sarah, and Diego established the International Wilderness Safety Foundation, which developed new technologies for tracking hikers and climbers in real time, including mandatory GPS beacons and emergency communication systems for all backcountry expeditions. Chilean and Argentine park authorities implemented new background checking requirements for all guides and personnel working in wilderness areas, while also establishing better coordination systems for cross-border searches and investigations. The case inspired the development of new training programs for wilderness guides and rescue personnel, emphasizing the importance of recognizing and reporting suspicious behavior that might indicate predatory activity targeting outdoor enthusiasts. International climbing organizations created databases for sharing information about potential threats and suspicious individuals across different countries and regions, helping to prevent dangerous individuals from moving between locations to avoid detection. The story of the 3 backpackers became a cautionary tale taught in outdoor education programs worldwide, emphasizing the importance of varying routes, maintaining communication schedules, and being aware of potential human threats in addition to natural dangers. Memorial services held in Germany, Canada, and Argentina honored the victims while raising awareness about wilderness safety and the need for continued vigilance in protecting outdoor enthusiasts from both natural and human predators. The foundation established by their families funded research into improving emergency communication technologies and developing better methods for tracking and locating missing persons in remote wilderness areas. Eduardo Vasquez's crimes highlighted the vulnerability of international travelers in remote areas and led to improved cooperation between law enforcement agencies in different countries for investigating crimes against tourists and outdoor enthusiasts. The case also sparked discussions about the psychological factors that might drive individuals to target outdoor enthusiasts, leading to better understanding of predatory behavior in wilderness settings and improved methods for identifying and preventing such crimes. Today, more than a decade after the tragic discovery of the 3 backpackers hanging from a Patagonian cliff face, their story continues to influence wilderness safety practices and serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of vigilance and preparation when venturing into remote areas. The International Wilderness Safety Foundation has grown into a global organization that has helped locate and rescue hundreds of missing hikers and climbers through its advanced tracking technologies and emergency response protocols. Torres del Paine National Park now serves as a model for wilderness safety, with comprehensive monitoring systems, mandatory check-in procedures, and rapid response capabilities that have significantly reduced the number of missing persons cases in the region. The families of Marcus, Sarah, and Diego have found some measure of peace through their advocacy work, knowing that their loved ones' tragic deaths have led to improvements that have saved countless other lives in wilderness areas around the world. Eduardo Vasquez remains imprisoned in Chile, where he continues to be studied by criminal psychologists seeking to understand the motivations behind predatory behavior targeting outdoor enthusiasts in remote locations. The cliff site where the bodies were discovered has been marked with a memorial plaque honoring the three backpackers and serving as a reminder of the human dangers that can exist even in the most beautiful and seemingly pristine wilderness areas. Annual memorial expeditions organized by the climbing community visit the site to pay respects to the victims, while also serving as training exercises for wilderness safety and emergency response procedures. The case has been featured in numerous documentaries, books, and academic studies examining the intersection of wilderness recreation and criminal behavior, helping to educate new generations of outdoor enthusiasts about potential risks and safety measures. Advanced GPS tracking and communication technologies developed in response to this case have become standard equipment for wilderness expeditions, significantly improving the ability of rescue teams to locate and assist hikers and climbers in distress. The legacy of Marcus Weber, Sarah Mitchell, and Diego Morales lives on through the thousands of outdoor enthusiasts who travel more safely because of the reforms and technologies inspired by their tragic deaths, proving that even in the darkest circumstances, positive change can emerge to protect others from similar fates. Their story serves as an eternal reminder that while the wilderness offers incredible beauty and adventure, it also requires respect, preparation, and constant awareness of both natural and human dangers that may lurk in even the most remote and seemingly safe locations.